G'day everybody, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. I've got this rifle in front of us today because we had a little tiny break in the weather to go out and do a little bit of shooting at some long range stuff. Because we had that little break, we haven't actually done any long range shooting for over a month now. We had a little break, thought of what can we do, and I thought of something fairly extreme to try, which is something we tried in a lot better conditions a few years ago, and that was shooting a Coke can at 2000 yards. Now, an extreme shot, but listen, we have a little 2000 yard spot we can get to, which is actually an airstrip on the property we shoot at. So that's what we set up, we thought we were going to do. Knew how we were going to set it up, we had that little condition coming up, and then the night before we checked that it was all going to be all okay to go and do that, and found that there was a chance. A very rarely used airstrip, but they had a plane that was going to be coming at lunchtime, so 4 hours, 6 hours after we were going to be there, but it was coming in and going to be there, which was a little bit of a furball, but we got verified that that's when it was going to be there, but it still caused us to change our plans a little bit. Now, I'll go through the video and have a look at the video and see how that went, and I'll start to explain a little bit of what that caused for us, and it caused a little bit of a learning process, and we didn't get our job done in the way of hitting that Coke can. Still very happy how this performed. Anyway, I'll cut to the video now so you can see how that went. Okay. That's real easy to use. Real easy.
Tall and left, so half can tall, 2 cans left. Tall, top left, so half can tall, 2 cans left. Oh, directly behind, 3/4 can low, just so at the edge of the crop. Yeah.
That's pretty close to on the money.
Yeah. Level with top edge, have 1 can left.
Go.
Left and low. Level with left edge, 3/4 can low. Left and low. So 1 can low, like level with the left edge really. Right, so that was 1 can low and half can right.
Go.
Oh, directly underneath. It was one can low, directly underneath, nice and straight.
Okay, well, as you can see, we're going pretty well in the video at the moment, but there's a couple of details I want to go through. Because we had found out about that plane, in setting up the target, I'd moved it to a different place. Just wanted to be certain. I didn't want to have a surprise attack of the plane getting there early and us having to dash around and potentially cause an issue. So I'd set up the target right to the other side of the runway, to where an unused part of the runway, so it's actually quite wide, the whole strip there. It doesn't look it from our vision, I get it, but it's right over the side where it isn't used at all, where it wouldn't be in the road, but it changed how we're doing. Because we're shooting on the runway, on the far side, there's a couple of details here. One is the steel pole that's underneath that Coke can. This there is where that steel pole actually landed. Now, where we had decided in looking at things and trying to figure out where it was going to actually need to hit, we figured out that right there was going to be our impact spot. That was going to be where the bullet had passed straight through the Coke can. Now, as you'll notice in the shooting side of things, we were landing bullets I was landing them right in around about here. Right in that spot there, there's lots of impacts. And that was really, they were going a little bit left. At that point, I've found to try and make that tiny a correction, you're more likely to get a correction out of the inaccuracies of the rifle, or, it's opening out to quarter MOA. You're going to find that they go over that side. So I kept that same hold, and as sometimes happens, it kept hitting in exactly the same place.
Oh. Underneath, immediately underneath, 3/4 can low.
What I did, there's a couple of times you do go to move your hold, and I did through the shooting, and I would move the hold over to the side here, and then it would hit further over to the right. So I kept largely on this same hold, which we ended up hitting most of them a little bit to the left, some of them immediately underneath. But now here's where I go into a couple of mistakes that we made in doing this setup the way it was. And that is, first of all, because Sam was sitting to the right-hand side of me in the shooting, the real place where would have been the target, I'll just change the colour of this. The real place for the hit would have been so I can draw a line down here, somewhere around there would have been the real place for the hit, just to the right-hand side, which would make sense of Sam's view and this camera's view of where the bullet was going. Would have been just to the right-hand side. Now, the other thing that's going on, and I can't tell you exactly where because he didn't hit the can, is that from this edge here, right on this edge of this grass to this point here, is a little bit over 8 yards. So nearly 9 yards is that distance there. So where that bullet, we were also shooting from an elevated spot. Our shooting point is 1,035 feet above sea level. This runway here is the 900 feet above sea level, so we're 135 feet higher. Not a great angle, less than 2 degrees of angle, but it still means we're shooting down, the bullet's already coming down, and that arc could well have meant that we had to shoot a little bit low. It might be somewhere around here that we'd had to shoot. But because the ground is falling off at this point, there is this only a little tiny bit of difference between a hole nearly 10 yards where we should have set up, and where would have been doing a lot better job to do the setting up would have been if we'd set up the base of the pole from this point here, So the Coke can would have been up at this point here. If Sam was immediately behind me, then we would have been able to figure out, we knew exactly that we would have had to been shooting somewhere and hitting somewhere in this range through here. That's where we would have been actually shooting for, because on this side of the driveway, where there's a lot more angle in the ground, you'd find that from this point to this point is only a metre. And up again, you're only talking another metre. So you get a lot more vision by having the ground angled up behind you. So things we could have answered with putting a back plate behind, all that sort of stuff. Not what we're trying to do. Lessons a little bit of being rusty, I suppose you'd call it that, from not doing this sort of shooting for a few months now, just for shooting at our steel plates and that sort of stuff. So going to do this, obviously extreme shot, but still things I think are of value to understand. When you're going for those very fine targets, have your spotter immediately behind you, and whenever you have the opportunity, make sure the ground is sloping up behind you. Shooting into a bank is the nicest way to do it. Shooting into a hill is also a very nice way to do it. Shooting on the other side of the normal crown of a road and shooting over to that point there, which we'd made that option to make sure we're trying to stay safe and not going to cause any issues out of a plane coming early when it shouldn't have been, is something that we it's a mistake we made in not thinking about that side of things. And like I said, a sudden change at the last moment, but still I think valuable stuff to learn from our mistakes, and still super happy with the rifle, but interesting to be able to point it out to everyone. Okay, well listen, that's the general thing of how it went. We didn't get there, very, very close, very happy with it. As I explained, a couple of mistakes we made from that, so something to learn from it. Certainly having your ground ramping up behind is a really nice feature. Having your spotter in relevance to what you're shooting at, certainly when you've got that plane or that distance behind where you're trying to figure out where that goes, so lining things up really helps. But still, great practice, good to be out, get a bit of trigger time. It does show. We do a lot of this long range stuff, but it is the type of thing that if you're not 100% into every bit, and without a little bit of luck on your side, then it makes that sort of shot impossible. Anyway, it was interesting, thought I'd share. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.